Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is March 25th. Today in Botanical history, we celebrate Lady Day. March 25th is Lady Day. It's a traditional name of the Feast of the Annunciation, and it commemorates the visit of the Archangel Gabriel to the Virgin Mary. And it was during this visit that Gabriel told Mary that she would be the mother of Jesus Christ. Lady Day is also the very first of the 4 traditional English quarter days. And the marigold is the flower dedicated to Mary on Lady Day. The etymology of the common name marigold comes from Mary, probably referring to the Virgin Mary, and then gold refers to Mary's gold. Mary's gold was a common name used for a similar plant native to Europe, Calendula officinalis. Now, here's a little known fact about marigolds. Both the flowers and the leaves are edible, and marigolds are commonly used as culinary herbs. Now, in terms of medicinal uses, marigold is good for the skin and has been used for topical healing to address cuts and sores and general skin care. Marigolds have essential oils and a high concentration of flavonoids like carotene, just like carrots. In floriography, or the language of flowers, marigolds represent the sun and therefore refer to the power, strength, and light inside each of us. Marigolds also represent lost love. So if someone's inner strength has been damaged by the loss of a loved one, whether it be by death or a breakup, the marigold represents that despaired or lost love. And today we also celebrate the birthday of Nehemiah Grew, the English botanist who was born on this day, March 25th in 1641. Nehemiah is remembered as the father of plant anatomy, and he was the first person to illustrate the inner structures and functions of plants in all their amazing intricacies. Nehemiah's 1682 book was called Anatomy of Plants, and it was divided into 4 big topics: anatomy of vegetables begun, anatomy of roots, anatomy of trunks, and anatomy of leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Nehemiah used a relatively new invention to help him study plant morphology, the microscope, and he tried to recreate what he was seeing through the lens when he drew. And Nehemiah Grew's drawings of tree parts cut transversely look like intricate laser cuts. Imagine a mandala, and the lines are impossibly thin. And there you will have Nehemiah's drawings of tree trunks. Now, Nehemiah examined all kinds of natural elements under the microscope. He got very curious, and he was known to write the first microscopic description of pollen. Now, if you'd like to try something fun this summer, channel your inner Nehemiah Grew and get a microscope on Amazon or at Goodwill and check out your own plant specimens under the microscope. Be ready to be amazed. And it was on this day, in 1890, that the naturalist João Barbosa Rodrigues established the herbarium at the Botanical Garden of Rio de Janeiro. The herbarium was João's first step toward expanding the scope of the garden to include education. And today, the herbarium has over 750,000 mounted specimens of Brazilian flora, and most of the collection is from the Atlantic and Amazon forests. The Botanic Garden sits on 350 acres and features over 7,000 species of tropical plants. And one of the most memorable elements of the garden is the avenues of 100-foot-tall royal palms. And it was on this day, last year in 2021, that the Indira Gandhi Memorial Tulip Garden in Kashmir opened to the public. The largest tulip garden in Asia, the garden was formerly known as the Model Floriculture Center and covers 74 acres. The garden is owned by the government. The Indira Gandhi Memorial Tulip Garden was originally created in 2007 with 1.5 million tulip bulbs from Amsterdam's famous Keukenhof Tulip Gardens. Other spring flowering bulbs like daffodils, hyacinth, and ranunculus have since been added to the 65 different varieties of tulips now growing in Kashmir. This year, the Kashmir Tulip Garden Festival runs from April 1st through the 20th, and every year the tulip garden is opened to the public during the month of March when the tulips start to bloom. A fantastic sight to see. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Violets of March by Sarah Geo. This book came out in 2011, and this book is a fiction book. The book is about a heartbroken woman who stumbles on a diary and then steps into the life of its anonymous author. The main character is named Emily Wilson. She has a best-selling novel, a husband plucked from the pages of GQ, and a one-way ticket to happily ever after. But 10 years later, Emily's life has changed. Her great-aunt Bee invites her to spend the month of March on Bainbridge Island in Washington State. And when she's researching her next book, she stumbles on a red velvet diary that's dated 1943. And then the contents of the diary have massive implications to her own life. Now, I love what Jodi Picoult said about The Violets of March. She wrote, "Mix a love story, history, and a mystery, and what takes root? The Violets of March," a novel that reminds us how the past comes back to haunt us and packs great surprises along the way. Now, if you're a gardener, you're going to love the cover of this book because it's an old chair with the diary that's open and then a violet cutting on top of the pages. It's absolutely beautiful. So, if you're looking for a little fiction book to tide you over through the spring, please consider The Violets of March by Sarah Geo. This book is 296 pages of intrigue, incredible settings, as well as history and mystery. You can get a copy of The Violets of March by Sarah Geo and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $1 for the paperback version. Fantastic deal. And that's because it's been out for over a decade now. So treat yourself. All right, today we'll wrap things up with a Botanic Spark featuring Jim Salyards, the Director of Horticulture at the Filoli Center. And it was on this day back in 2020, at the start of the pandemic, that Jim documented the spring displays in an article called Essential Gardening, Public Gardens in the Spring of COVID-19, which was published in Arnoldia, a publication of the Arnold Arboretum of Harvard University. The Filoli Garden is located at a grand country estate that was built in 1917 for the William Bourne family. Now, Bourne devised the name Filoli on his own, and it represented his personal motto, Fi from to fight for a just cause, Lo from to love your fellow man, and Li, Li, from to live a good life. Now, there's a good chance that Filoli is a place you might be familiar with, especially if you were a fan of the 1980s hit TV show Dynasty, because Filoli's house was the Carrington House. And every year, 100,000 visitors stop by the home and gardens. Nestled in the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains, just south of San Francisco, the 16-acre formal English garden at Filoli is in USDA Zone 7, which means that Filoli can grow beautiful spring bulbs. And those flowers draw many visitors, since spring bulbs generally can't grow in the native California climate. But on this day, back in 2020, at the beginning phase of the pandemic, the garden had no visitors. And here's what Jim wrote. On March 25th, I was in the sunken garden, snapping a social media photo of yellow West Point tulips that were blooming within the low-clipped hedges of the parterres. Filoli blooms 365 days a year because of the moderate climate along the coast of Northern California. Locals and visitors from around the globe are captivated by the spring experience of seeing daffodils and tulips in our meadows and formal beds. Wisteria clamors on the side of the mansion, and peonies are show-stopping. But this year, our spring peak of mid-March to mid-April was completely missed. All the planting and tending on the part of the staff, all the expectant calls and emails that started at the beginning of the year asking the best time to visit were for naught. I did my best to share photos and videos through our social media outlets, but it's just not the same. A few thumbs up or heart emojis are a poor substitution for the oohs and ahs and the thank yous we receive from guests each day. The guests who call out compliments while we're weeding and pruning, or who pass along the praise to our colleagues in visitor services and interpretation. Public gardens like Filoli are champions of environmental education and conservation, yes, but we also provide substance for people's souls. Hopefully, in the near future, the garden will once again become a space of healing, just when the world needs us most. And this year, of course, Filoli is open to the public. Well, that's it for today's show. Just remember that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.